Welcome to the next example, which we have 2x squared minus x minus 10 equal to 0. So, lucky for us, we start off with all the terms on the left side, and on the other side of the equal sign is 0. So that means that we can start identifying our ABC values, A, B, C. So A is positive 2, B is negative 1, and C is negative 10. After that, I'm going to set up my X chart or my X table. And just like before, at the very top, it's A times C, and then the bottom is B. So for A times C, 2 times negative 10, that will be negative 20. And then for my B value, which is negative 1. So since I'm looking for factors of negative 20, remember, two numbers that multiply into negative 20, one has to be positive and one has to be negative. Make sure you remember that. Alright, then I'm going to set up my table over here. Factors of A times C and the sum or difference of those two factors. Alright, so when we're looking for factors of negative 20, you can start by writing out the factors. And one thing I forgot to mention is that the reason we write out the factors is that you can visually see which factors that you have already tested out and didn't work. So that way, you have a better chance of finding the correct factor. You don't want to end up writing out a pair of factors that didn't work, erase, and then accidentally writing down the same numbers you just used before that didn't work. So this is a way to organize your work, to visually see what factors you have tested out and didn't work. So now you're doing just a process of elimination. So let's try negative 2 times positive 10. When you multiply, that does give you negative 20. But if I combine negative 2 with a positive 10, my sum and difference is positive 8. So that does not match with negative 1. So I can't use negative 2 and positive 10. And even if I switch the negative to the 10, and when I combine the two factors, I'm not going to have a B value or the sum and difference matching with my B value. So let's try another one. Say I do negative 20 times positive 1. When you multiply, that will give you negative 20. But if I combine negative 20 with a positive 1, then my sum and difference is negative 19. Now I'm really far off from my B value, so I can't use negative 20 with positive 1. In addition, even if I switch the negative sign to the other factor, I'm still going to have the sum and difference that is not very close to my B value. Alright, let's try negative 4 times positive 5. When you multiply, it will give me negative 20. And then when I combine negative 4 with positive 5, my sum and difference is positive 1. Now, it's very close to the B value because it's the same number. It's just, it's the opposite sign. So if it's the opposite sign, that means that I can just switch the negative to the other factor. So I'm going to have negative 5 times positive 4. Again, when you multiply, it gives me negative 20. And then when I combine negative 5 with positive 4, my sum and difference is negative 1. So I just found the correct pair of factors, negative 5 and positive 4. So I'm going to write 4 right here and then negative 5. And then what I'm going to include is the x with these two factors. So once you finish identifying the correct pair of factors, then I'm going to set up my work for grouping. I'm going to first write the first term, so 2x squared. Then I'm going to write plus 4x because it's positive. Here I'm going to write minus 5x because it's negative. And then I'm going to write the last term, which is minus 10. Alright. I'm going to underline the left side in blue. And then I'm going to underline the right side in green. So let's start identifying our greatest common factor, GCF, on the left side. So the common factor, or greatest common factor, between 2x squared and 4x is that they're both divisible by 2. In addition, they both have x, so I'm going to include x. So my greatest common factor on the left side is 2x. So I'm going to write 2x outside the parenthesis, and then I'm going to start dividing each part. 2x squared divided by 2x is simply x. Positive 4x divided by 2x is plus 2. And then close parenthesis. Alright, let's start identifying our GCF on the right side. So negative 5x and negative 10, they're both divisible by 5. Now there's one thing you have to watch out. So this is my right side. If you look closely, the first term on the right side, if it's negative, then I must include a negative on my GCF. So I'll repeat. If on the right side, and the same thing can be said for the left side, if the first term on the right side or on the left side, if it's negative, then you must include a negative sign in your GCF, just like how I included a negative on my 5. So I'm going to divide each part by negative 5, so I'm going to write minus 5 here, open parenthesis. Negative 5x divided by negative 5 is just positive x. Negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. And if you look closely, the factor that's inside the parenthesis, x plus 2 here, x plus 2 here, you see how it's exactly the same? Now, if I did not include the negative, then the signs inside the parenthesis would have been different compared to the one over here. So that means I'm not finished with factoring by grouping. So it's a lot better to include the negative if the first term on the right side or on the left side is negative. So be very careful with your signs. Now once they are the same, then I'm simply going to group my outside factor, my GCF, together. So 2x minus 5 in parentheses. And then I'm going to write my other set of parentheses, x plus 2 just once. And then let me box that up. And then these are my factors. Now, the one thing I didn't do in the last example was identifying solutions. So, if it says to factor and identify the solution, this is what you gotta do for the solution part. So let me write out for the solution. So if you go back to the original problem, you see how it equals to 0. So what it means that once you identify your factors, 2x minus 5 and x plus 2, when you're looking for a solution, all you have to do is set each factor equal to 0. So that's all you have to do. So first, I'm going to write 2x minus 5 equal to 0. And then for the other factor, x plus 2 equal to 0. And you're only doing this if you're looking for solution. So I repeat, you only do this process if you're looking for solution. Now, if it just say factor, you would just stop right here where it says factor and box in red. But if it says factor and identify the solution, then you have to do this part also. You cannot do the solution part if you have not finished factoring. So, again, I said each factor equal to 0, and I'm going to start solving for x. So, for the factor on the left side, I'm going to cancel out the minus 5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So 2x equals to positive 5. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to solve for x. So my solution is x equals to 5 over 2, or 5 halves. Then over here, to solve for x, I'm going to cancel out the 2. I'm simply going to minus 2 on both sides. So it's going to be x equals to negative 2. So my solution are x equals 5 halves, or 5 over 2, and x equals to negative 2. So those are my two solutions. And then I'm going to box them up in red. So again, you only do the solution part is if it asks you to factor and identify the solution, or factor and find the solution, or simply say find the solution of this quadratic equation. Even if it says find the solution of the quadratic equation, you still have to do the factoring work. You cannot do the solution if you don't have the correct factors.